welcome, guys, to my Golden Bachelor recap, season one, episode. I think this is episode 8. Yes, it is the penultimate episode. We are there. The season is almost over. I was concerned about this episode.
Oh,
I I thought it was gonna go in either one or two directions, and I think we kind of fell somewhere in the middle. So I wasn't. It definitely wasn't my worst episode of the season. So I
No.
will say that. And welcome to my co-host as always. How are you doing, Miss TJ, this Sunday morning?
I'm doing good. It's a nice, beautiful fall day here in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
And we're getting near the end. And I'm going to tell you, I thought Gary was very firm on one way. And I feel like this episode kind of made me feel like he really doesn't know. He doesn't really know. He does, but he has to be careful with his what he's telling these women. Like he's telling a little too much not to know. He's making it seem like he knows when he's with this woman, and then he gets with the other one, and then it's like, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, sir, don't say certain things. Don't say certain
Yeah.
things. That's why Faith was so hurt. Like, don't say certain things.
I don't know if I totally agree, but we're going to discuss. Chantel, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty well. I kind of have a little bit of a stuffy nose, so I'm gonna sound a little nasal today. But other than that, I'm feeling fine. With the Golden Bachelor, it's been obviously a great season. We've been enjoying watching and recapping it. But I guess, this episode, it was just a little bit different because I kind of saw Gerry in a different light, and then he's getting a lot of backlash. And then I'm like, I'm not sure where I stand because it's just the first time we're seeing this. And so it definitely brought up a lot of questions. But I do agree in a sense with Miss Chijoy with the fact that, if you don't know, stop saying that you do know. Right?
Right.
Like, even if you feel it, yes, you're the one, you're my girl, I love you. Even if you feel it, just maybe reel it in, because before, and like years ago, you weren't even allowed to say that you loved the final two people. And then I think it was, who was it that broke it?
Katie, was it Katie?
No, it was with the dark hair. He picked Lauren and JoJo were the final two.
Lauren and JoJo, not Brad. No,
after Brad. His dark hair. He has a podcast with Ashley.
He was on the Traitors.
He has a podcast.
Ben Higgins.
Ben Higgins. And so he was the first person that I remember saying, I love you to two women. And JoJo was like, are you allowed to say that? And he didn't end up picking JoJo. And so, that was the first time that the Bachelor or Bachelorette ever said, I love you to two people. And so I think they just need to bring it back to not doing that, because I don't think that this heartbreak that it's going to give the woman that's not picked is worth it for the ratings or like the drama of it all. And so I think that that's what's going to end up plaguing Gerry, is the fact that he did say, I love you to two women, and he literally is going to have to completely break his word to one of them. And if he just had kept it, zipped it, he would have been fine. He would have just...
Yeah. So so this is my thing. I really do feel like he went into this complete. I think what Chantel had said. Hi, Debu. Yes, thank you, Ben Higgins. What Chantel had said a couple episodes ago, not Women Tell All, but the episode, that I think he picked Teresa as and I said this as well, that he picked Teresa as the safe option. Faith was not the option because she was the only one insistent that she was not going to move. And regardless of whatever chemistry, whatever was there, just that line being drawn there was no reason to keep her moving forward, because it would have hurt everybody. So I think he chose the safe option, Teresa, and the option he really wanted, which was Leslie, So Leslie got the rose first. I think he thought, okay, I I have feelings for both of them, but I know that Leslie's the one, right? You're my girl, all this stuff. I think he thought he could get through it, and by not telling Teresa, I love you on the Ferris wheel, like we saw it in the beginning of this episode, he tells this to Jesse that he held back with Teresa. And I do think he does love Teresa. I think that's why they threw that little I love Teresa in there back when they went to hometowns, right? Like he didn't say it to her, but they threw it in there for us to hear because they knew he had come to this point, right, in editing. I agree with you. They have to figure out a way to not do this. Either you cannot say it and confirm it to anybody, or this is what we're going to get because, I'm sorry, I'm pointing my TV. This is what you're going to get because let's say you start developing feelings for someone and realize those feelings are stronger and you did not tell them you loved them, but you told the other person on camera you loved them. This is what you're going to get.
Yes. And it's not just also, I love you. It's, yes, you're my girl. You're my one. You're the one I can see my,
It's those confirmation. They've got to figure out a way to give confirmation without giving confirmation.
Well, and I think though also that because these women are older, like
right.
kind of like I think he feels that he needs to give the respect to them that like, what they're in is something real. But like I think the format of the show is I don't think that Gerry understood what he was gonna really have to do. Like he didn't realize that he was actually gonna have feelings. He probably just thought like, oh, I'll just like one person, I'll be able to tell them the truth, and like the other person I'll just dump. But like
right. And I think that's how he came into this episode. I mean, basically, that's kind of what he was saying a lot. Like I like this one person more, so like this is how I'm gonna move. And then he realized, oh crap, no, I actually think that I could see myself having like a real life with this other person. We just haven't had the time to develop our relationship, and so he did not. And again, the man met his wife in high school, married her, went about his business for 50 odd years.
Right.
No, nothing. Like, I mean, that would have been the same thing with me. I met my ex-husband in high school. We didn't even date. I keep telling people, because people are like, you didn't date. No, I met him in high school. We went to prom together. We didn't date. We went to college, separate colleges. He would visit me. I would visit him. We got pregnant, had a child, got married. Like in my head, I never thought that we would not be together for the same, like till death to us part. Right. So I understand that feeling. Like you never dated. You never dated multiple people. You do not know how to handle or maneuver this at all.
Right. And especially having like two women addressing the fact that they love you and that like they could see their life with you. Like he's only really heard that from one person. And so I think, you never know. It's people have experience, but like likely though, his wife was the only person that has said those words to him. And so I don't think he's actually processed on multiple occasions people loving him in that way. And so I think that he might be overwhelmed and he might have been out of his elements to an extent. Like, yes, he's been a great bachelor up until this point. He's been kind. He's been considerate. He's been understanding. He's been forthcoming. Like, he's been a really great bachelor, but he actually doesn't know how to handle the hearts of multiple women. And that's kind of where the show's vetting process kind of fell short, is that they didn't choose someone that would really understand how to take care of multiple women's hearts.
Right. I mean, I guess what the show did do well at is not have 3 women go through this. I can't imagine 3 women going through this to the end.
It would be bad. In the process, they probably said to themselves, He can't even. He can barely do 2. He definitely can't do 3. We got to fix this. He cannot do 3. Make it so. Make it so. He does not have 3. It can't. It can't happen.
And I also think this might be showing that the Bachelor's format is broken.
It is. It is.
Because,
I mean,
I
even
never
Jabu
really
is
liked it.
saying it.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jabu's saying that Gary's doing what all recent Bachelors have done, lose the plot at the end. But that's the point. This is the plot. This is the plot that they built. They built
The
this
structure.
pyramid on. Yeah, like the structure is. You get to the end, and you're supposed to be torn between these two people. I mean, we saw Charity even say that I was in love with Joey and Dawson, and I'm like, you weren't in love with Joey. You weren't in love with Joey, and she says that now. No, I wasn't in love with Joey. Right, but that's the plot that they built. This that you're supposed to come down to this where you're in love with these two people, and it's so difficult to choose when. I mean, even with Michelle, it was clear it was Nate. It was always Nate. It was clear it's Nate. But everybody said no, she was really in love with Brandon. No, it was Nate. Like, come on, guys. Like, but that is what they want with the drama at the end, and I don't need it. I don't. I'm okay with just being clear that this is such and such's love story, and I'm okay with that. And it sucks.
Well,
But
I
I'm
think
okay
they
with
want
that.
those moments, like, remember Claire when she like pushes Juan Pablo back because she thought that she was number one. Like, I think they want that moment, but I think what they must be learning with an older group of bachelorettes is that it's actually really devastating and quite mean and torturous. And
Yeah.
it's very, very unkind to bring
Yes.
someone to the end of this experiment, especially if they're saying to them, giving them affirming statements of love and it's you and all that stuff, and then just take it away for entertainment. I think they're realizing how toxic and unkind the process and the format of the show is. So hopefully they'll change something. It won't be for Joey's season, obviously, but
Right.
I don't think we need it, because just seeing 70-year-old women get their heart broken on a TV show, that part isn't really, I'm not really with that.
No.
Me neither. Not at all. Hi V, how are you?
Hi,
V
V.
says, imagine if Faith was in the fantasy suites. It would have been too much for Gary. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I feel like he cut her ahead of the even more developed connection that they had, because just watching her last week at Women Tell, she would have been tortured.
Like a baby. She cried like a baby, and it's been months. It's been months.
Yeah.
She cried like a baby. She would
If
have
she
been
had slept with him and like shared that moment, and he said to her things like "you're the one," and then dumped her, like that, like that's like she wouldn't have been in a good place. Like, she definitely would have sought
she
therapy.
Wouldn't have been able to put herself back together. She's already broken. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
At least he had enough foresight to do that. At least he had enough foresight to do that.
I will say, I will agree. I think it helps. I was going to say, and I think it helps her making that ultimatum, because we see him have those types of conversations with these two women, and they just, again, I think I even said it, it just felt like they were a little more amenable to figuring out how they were going to live life together, what that meant. But the decision would be made by both of them, and not, you have to come live on my ranch with my horses for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, that's just not, masculine men are not going to really vibe with that.
No, I mean, nobody. I wouldn't want somebody telling me you have to come live in California on my ranch for the rest of my life.
I would probably say yes.
I mean, it would be like, oh, that sounds nice, but is this like what if I don't want to? What then? Can I have a stay? What if I want a mansion in California rather than a ranch? Can we move? Like, what is the conversations here? And so I just feel like that was where she ultimately faltered in that. But thank you for that, because I think it would have been a wrong choice to bring Faith to the end. I do feel like, I will say this, I do feel like he chose the right two women personally, connection wise. Yeah. So we do see like the start of the episode, Gary's on his date with Leslie, and he does say to her, "You haven't asked me the hard questions." And Leslie's like, "Okay, well, when's the last time you had sex?" And
I mean,
Gary
that's a hard
burst
question.
out laughing.
I don't think that's the question he was thinking about.
It was definitely, and we find out later, he was definitely not thinking about that question. Um,
And he answers like, "Wait, what do you mean? Like with myself or with another
and
person?"
she's like, "With someone else," and they both laugh.
I
And
know
so
his
we do,
grandchildren are at home like, "Granddaddy, please."
because they're older too, they're teens, they're in
I
20s,
know.
so like, yeah, like, ooh. So so we do see Gary driving through Costa Rica. Is this the first time that Bachelor has been in Costa Rica? No, right? They've been like
I
one
feel
other
like they have,
time.
but I don't know
Yes.
offhand.
And he says it's a great place to find love. He says the 17 years that passed in his retirement, he didn't realize that this point of his life would be the best time of his life, and he
Mhm.
is looking forward to the alone and intimate time with both of these women. He says he's in love with both women, and I'm like, he says that, and then all the stuff later doesn't feel like that was really true at that point. But okay,
That's what he said.
but but Gary sits down with Jesse, and Jesse asks, "What does this week fantasy suite mean for him?" Because really, it's kind of what Chantel's saying. Like, this is the precedent that's going to be set for a
Mhm.
Golden Bachelor series and fantasy suites. What is this going to look like for the future of the Golden Bachelor, the Golden Bachelorette? And Gary says he knows that there are people who are wondering if people his age still knock boots. And I died.
Because like, would they say that? No.
No. And
So whatever knocking boots is, we don't think you're doing it.
right, right. But he says he likes the idea of pillow talk, barriers coming down. He has two women he could see himself spending the rest of his life with. Jesse brings up Leslie, and we do see like little scenes from their dates, their interactions. And Gary says Leslie is colorful, playful. He loved her reaction to him saying he loved her. And then Jesse brings up Teresa, and Gary says Teresa has warm, safe, secure feelings. Um, there's a hole in her heart, like there is for him from losing a spouse. They get each other. He regrets holding back from reciprocating Teresa's "I love you," and he knows that he loves her. He just wants to make sure to say it in the right moment. And so then Jesse brings up intimacy in the baby making sense of the word. Jesse was going to get out. Are you
He
having
was
sex
so
tonight?
uncomfortable. He was so uncomfortable. It was like,
He was. I love what I love about Jesse Palmer as a host in comparison to Chris Harrison is that Chris Harrison was always on, right? Like on, like that, just professional, like nothing phased him. And I do love that we get a little more down to earth. I feel like with Jesse, Jesse laughs, he makes jokes, like he's the Yeti, like right, like
he seems
we,
more
we
genuine. He seems
he
more
does.
genuine.
It comes off more genuine. So it's like, yes, the producers want me to ask you if you're having sex, but then he's also uncomfortable because he's asking somebody's granddad or who could be his like father,
Right.
granddad if they're having sex, right?
Right.
So Gary says he is not rushing those moments. He'll read the room, and it feels right, then we'll go with it. He says at his age, he will never pass up a moment like that, as it could be the last time it happens. And
When he said that,
I
I was like, excuse me, sir.
So what's like also really like I'm not sure how I feel about it though is when Gerry is describing like how he wants to make sure that the women feel completely comfortable and that everything's
Mhm.
okay. Like it kind of I don't know, it just turned me very off. Like I was never on with like me and Garrett, like no, but like this how he just wants to be so respectful with how they're going to be love making. Like it just like it kind of I don't know. It took me out. It took me out that and like you know when you see on shows where a guy's like, "Can I kiss you?" And you're just like,
Mhm.
just no, see, feel the moment and kiss her, you know, because like I
Yes.
think when you ask like, "Can I kiss you?" it just becomes a little bit weird. I feel like this is a
Yes.
little bit how the fantasy moment I'm envisioning with him is that like in every moment he's like, "Do you mind I touch you here? Can I touch you?" And then it was like, just feel the moment and let's just do it or not do it. But like, let's be so precious about it. I don't know if I'm making
Yeah.
sense, but there's something.
I understand what you're saying. Consent is a thing,
Consent, absolutely.
right? But I get it. There's something. It's just something about passion, right? Like there's something about just living in that moment and just whatever happens happens,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And and sometimes I feel like we as women we either want to take the lead and just be uninhibited, right? Or
Mhm.
we'd rather the guy take the lead and
Mhm.
just be okay with what happens. And um and so if they're tentative when taking the lead, it does kind of throw that passion
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's something.
yeah. So I agree. V says I adored Gary's conversation with Jesse. It was like Jesse was talking.
Yeah, it's great.
It was endearing. It was endearing. But I also agree, or not necessarily agree, but understand where you're coming from, Chantel, because uh, it, we feel like Gary always seems to have the right words for like every moment. I don't know if he necessarily had the right words in this
Yeah, him
episode
No,
at all.
describing how
he
he sort of
didn't.
set
No,
the
he
scene to
didn't.
have sex, like
Yeah,
I was really not
yeah.
into it.
No, no,
Right.
no, 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 no.
Oh,
Right.
Um,
can you move on Tabu's comment here because I do have something to say about it.
Sean Lowe.
Yes.
Dabu says I don't remember Sean Lowe over promising with the women.
So what I did hear this, I believe it was after the fact, is that he actually slipped Catherine a note of some sort saying that she was the one, or don't worry, you're my girl, or just like just have to go through this, but like it's you. And so he did give her a note to allow her to know
Oh.
that no
Mhm.
matter what was going to be happening, she was the person that he was picking. And so I don't think he said I love you when they were together or on camera to her or any of the other girls, but he did slip her a certain something so that she could feel confident in their connection.
And see, I like that.
That's
I
cute.
even don't hate what he did with Teresa here, but if he had done it to both in equity, I think would have felt better about it. If you
Mhm.
understand what I'm saying, like he told her he did not confirm and then told her when they were alone. I feel like if he had done that with Leslie, I would feel better about the entire situation.
Right.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised though. Like, what if he is choosing Teresa and he
Hmm.
wanted to actually make it more of like a special
Special.
moment?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Because then you didn't say it to somebody else, and it makes it even more special. Because to me, I feel like the way it was described was a special moment. But then when you watch everything in totality, it takes the specialness just like a little, like
Because he already
shades just
said it
a
to somebody else.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
up against a
You told
building,
her
and he
you
liked
were
her
on it.
reaction. Yeah, I don't know. So we do see the first date up is Leslie, and she says she's excited, a little scared. They always have a great time together, though. Their hometown was everything, and she feels so secure with Gary, so she's excited to be here. And so Leslie and Gary meet, and she does her best hooju. So we did see two hoojus in this
Yeah.
episode. Their
And one was
best
like,
older
is he
people,
okay?
their best older people. Oh, geez,
Yeah. Yeah.
they got to figure out something else because listen, if it's somebody with a bad knee or like off balance, we do not want these people getting hurt in future
Not with
seasons,
a bad D.
people.
You terrible, Tamika. Not with a bad D. Okay.
Trying to help here. This
Gary
can't
said he can
happen.
handle it. Gary said he can handle it. Jump on
Oh,
me.
oh,
Okay.
Mm, mm. So he does tell her they are rappelling down a Costa Rican mountain. Oh, guys, have y'all done rappelling at all?
I've done
Yes,
it. Yeah,
yes.
I was gonna say I did it
Uh,
in Costa Rica, but no, I did it in Mexico. Mm.
I've
okay.
done it. But I would love to do it.
Um, I,
It's fun. I don't find it scary, but I can understand someone that might find it scary. But
yeah, I would
it's
probably
enjoyable.
find it scary. I'm not big. I've hiked up mountains. I've not rappelled. So, she Leslie does say this scares her. She items this would be the first time she's doing something like this with someone by her side. She has been hurt and abandoned, but Gary makes her feel safe. And so they do complete the rappel. Gary encouraged her entirely down the way because basically we're just getting ITMs of her, I'm very not her, I'm abandoned her, and I was just like, okay, we got it, we understand. But over that was Gary encouraging her, now do this, do that, do this, and they do complete the rappel. And Gary says at the bottom, now you have a story to tell, and that he's proud of her. And a barrier came down for them as she conquered her fear. And what did you think of that entire like just sequence?
Well, I felt as though for me, it seemed for Gary, it was a little bit paint by numbers. So it
Mm-hmm.
seemed like, oh, okay, they told me I need to kiss her while we're still in the harnesses. So I need to pull her for a kiss. It didn't seem organic. Like the moment he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to kiss now. Like, and definitely he's good. He knows that he needs to be encouraging, but maybe he's just a little bit tired. Maybe he's like, okay, let's wrap the show up. I just felt that there was a lack of enthusiasm a little bit from my perspective.
Okay.
I mean, I think he likes Leslie. I think he's just might be tired of like these dates and like I think he wants to get to the end of it. It felt like for me.
Okay. I can see that. I think that's also why they came down to two people because it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to do all of this as an older person. How about you, Miss T Joy?
I felt like this was the first time where I felt like Gary wasn't like jumping at the chance to be the knight in shining armor. Like, I mean, he wanted to encourage her, but this is the first time that I felt like it was taxing for him. Like, oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, you can do
Yeah.
it. I'm here for you. But it seemed like he was like, oh my God, why didn't y'all pick something else? Like,
Yeah.
because this
I
whole
can see that.
time he has been trying to put on his weight and be Superman and knight in shining armor, and that is what he's been offering. And we know that he likes the damsel and all that stuff, but it just felt like this time it was a little taxing, and he
Yeah,
wanted to
I can
hurry
see
up
that.
and
And that's why I
rappel
was
down
gonna
that
say
mountain.
paint with numbers. It's like he's like knows he's supposed to be encouraging. He knows supposed to say these things. He knows supposed to do the kiss here. I just didn't feel like he was that
Right.
like authentically enthusiastic. Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. And it might also just not be his thing, too. So it's like, is this an activity he's actually enjoying, right?
And
Like,
you know
you
what
know.
though? I wouldn't be surprised if it's like yes, he was in the moment for the most part on this date, but then when we see the next date, he was really out of it. And so
Oh, he
maybe
was
he had
off.
started
He was
thinking about like, oh my
exhausted.
God, I'm gonna have to go on another date with somebody else and
True,
like
but
so he
just not expressing it here.
Mhm,
Expressed it more there. I
exactly
can
because like
see that too.
he was already
Yeah.
thinking about like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to have another date with somebody else. And like, so maybe that's why he wasn't as present as we're used to him being.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Definitely in this date, but extremely not
Yes.
present in the
Extremely,
other date.
yeah,
Like even
yeah,
Right. At
insofar as
least
I
in
felt
this
bad.
day. Yeah, at least in this day he could play it off because they were repelling. So you don't have to
true,
talk the whole time and all that
right.
stuff. but Teresa really noticed it. It was terrible. I felt bad for her. He
I
was
felt bad for
like,
her too.
I
yeah.
felt bad for her as well. So we do see the part that I appreciated, which is they're sitting in a grotto and discussing what they want for their nights, and that they want to have open and honest conversations and go
Mhm.
deeper. And they do kiss. I like that scene. I like
Yes.
that. Just skip the repelling. Take me to straight to the grotto.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
right.
totally fine. I
Yeah,
could, he was in that moment more, and that's probably why you and I enjoyed that moment more. I think he was a little bit out of his elements and out of
yeah,
sorts, and his thoughts were preoccupied and in the
Mhm.
repelling portion.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so Gary is saying he's looking forward to their nighttime date to learn more of each other. And I noticed that they did show the name of the resort, the Spring Resort in Costa Rica. So I guess they are a sponsor of this episode. And Gary asked, Gary asked Leslie, did she enjoy herself today? And she says she did. And then we see the scene from the jump of the show where he says, you haven't asked me the tough questions. And they do go a little more in depth. It was a longer scene. Since the beginning, uh, you haven't asked questions. Are you giving me a pass on or something? What is it? And I was like, "Ooh, wow! Like that, that was like a lot." And I'm like,
Yeah.
it felt like I'm coming from a place of concern.
Well,
Yeah, he
it's like,
probably was like, you going along to get along. Are you just, doing that so you can be chosen? Because you're not giving me any kind of pushback, like none whatsoever. So I would think I would, if I was getting down to the bottom of it, I would want to know too. Like, you
I
just
would want
going
to
along to
know,
get
but I would
along?
also think that organically these things should have already come out. And like for him to
Right.
kind of being reprimanding her and grilling her for like not asking whatever question is that you think that she should have asked her by now, like maybe you've already answered everything that she needs to make this decision for herself. Like, why is your standard on what questions need to be asked by this point? Why do you need to like kind of judge me or judge her for that? So if I were her, I would actually, that would be a little bit of a red flaggy kind of turn off.
Yeah,
I'd be
I
like,
agree.
"Excuse me? What do you want me to
Yeah,
ask
I
you?"
agree. I was like, okay, that came out of nowhere. But we do then see her answer the question, say, well, when's the last time did you have sex? And then we see like the scene from the beginning, by myself or with someone else, She's like, has it been months or years? And I guess for her, the expectation is she's going into this fantasy suite to have sex with Gary. So
Oh,
she
Miss
wants to know how
Leslie,
to
most
handle him.
definitely. Yes, Miss
Yeah, like
Leslie, most
she wants to know how to handle him, which fair, right?
definitely.
So so he does say too, it's been a long time, and she does say it's been a year for me, and so I. I really do think people probably thought this was a, how do you say, superficial question.
Okay, so
But
what do you think he wanted her to ask her? Like, are you over your wife? Are you ready to get married again?
Yeah,
Do
he
you
wanted
would
her
you
to ask
yes,
those certain
he
questions,
wanted
like
her to
what
ask deep
like where
questions.
we're gonna live.
How we're gonna
Kind
But
of
then
do
like,
this.
also though, in her defense, that is what's usually meant for, if it hasn't come up already, the fantasy suites where you have all that time
right,
without the cameras, when you're not repelling, when you're not in a group date, when you're not, telling
right.
jokes on a stage, like, when you have an opportunity to really sit there, talk and connect. So I can understand that she hasn't asked these questions yet because they haven't gotten there yet in the relationship and in the show. So I don't know. I feel like maybe he was just trying to find a reason to break up with her if he needed to.
Hmm.
Really?
Well, like what does he need to, why is he kind of like berating her for like not asking him the tough questions?
I didn't think he was berating her. I thought he was just saying you haven't asked me the tough questions. I'm a question asker, so it wouldn't have bothered me. I would have already asked him 50 million questions, so he wouldn't be saying that to me. But I'm
You'd
just
be like, why are
saying,
you
like,
asking me so many questions? Do you not trust me?
yeah, that would be it. That would be it. You know what I mean? Like, why are you asking me so many questions?
but
But I think he was just trying, when you're trying to narrow it down and you've never been through this, you think to yourself, aren't there certain boxes or questions that should be asked, boxes that should be checked to help me. He might be a very analytical person, like to help me
Mhm.
narrow it down or figure out, because I really care about both of them. I don't know. I think he just was like, she just smiles
But
in my
then
face.
you ask the questions, not asking her to ask the questions. But it also kind of breeds to what Chantel was saying before. Is it possible he had already been in his head about whether Leslie was the right person and he just wasn't expressing it, and he was looking for something to, like, okay, let's just X her out? Because again, the words he used for her was a little more flightier than he was using for Teresa. So, does Leslie make him feel safe? Does Leslie make him feel secure? Maybe he doesn't feel secure and safe with Leslie. He doesn't trust her, and so this was his way of expressing that without being, I don't trust you, and what is actually going on. She's younger than him. He's retired. Like, what does it mean for her and him? That dynamic, right? It's possible that he maybe doesn't trust her because, again, they don't know each other.
What I wonder
Maybe
also.
he doesn't trust her, but if you don't trust her, don't tell her she's the one. Don't be, if you're in your head trying to figure out these things, then don't be looking her in her face telling her you love her and she's the one. Like, he literally said, "You're the one. You're my girl. You're it." Like, don't say that to her if you're
But I
in your
mean, but I'm gonna say he also said that like after this thing. Go ahead, Chantal.
He didn't
No, I
tell
was just saying, like,
Teresa that. I didn't hear him tell Teresa that.
But he told her, but we don't know because he told her that he loved her, and he had conversations with her off screen, and even with his conversations with Teresa when they were making out, he did stop his their making out and say, "Oh, we have grandkids watching." And I think we might have mentioned this before. I just feel like he moves with Teresa just a little bit differently than he does with Leslie. I think Leslie's nice and shiny object, and Teresa is safe and security. Go ahead, Chantel.
I'm
Sorry.
just wondering if it has to do with her sun sign. She's a Pisces. Pisces are dreamers and imaginative and romantic, but they
Hmm.
are like, we'll say, wishy-washy, go with the wind, very,
Hmm.
not necessarily concrete in their decision making. And so
Hmm.
her glow with the flow attitude, yes, that could be fun and adventurous, but for somebody that's a fixed sign, that's like, "Hey, I'm a Leo," and you're gonna be like wishy-washy, like, why aren't you asking me any damn questions? Like, I want something a little bit more firm. He's not as mutable as she
Hmm.
is. And so maybe we're just seeing how this is a little part of their incompatibility. And with
Hmm.
Teresa being the same sign as he is, they have a little bit more of an understanding on what people need to feel safe and secure. So just
Right.
throw that
Very
in
true.
there. It's a maybe.
Yeah.
Very true.
Um, so we do say, Gary say, I have a more practical question. How do you think our life would look? How would we live? Where would we live? And Leslie says, well, definitely she doesn't want to leave Minneapolis permanently. Her kids are there. Her grandkids are there, which we knew. Like, that part was not shocking. But she says at the end of the day, I love you and I want to be with you so we can figure out all of that together. And so instead of being bi-coastal, maybe we be bi-westerner. And we did say that they're very close Midwest to each other, so they could figure that out. And so I'm glad she did. She has either been thinking about it or she came out, up with it. But they thought that, but they both laugh at that bi-westerner. And she said the magical words. Um, we can figure it out. He says, we agreed to this. We agreed to this together and forever till death do us part. And so now we're really realizing, which I didn't realize, Gary's intending on proposing to whoever he picks. And I didn't feel like that prior to this episode.
This could be why he's been asking, be like, "Oh my god, dude, like, you haven't asked me the questions. Like, oh my god, I got to propose to one of you soon. Oh my god!" Like, I think he's probably just starting to panic silently.
Yes. Like, in his head, he is going to spend the rest of his life with this person
Mhm.
till he dies. That's how seriously he's taking it. And I do feel like Gary's taking it seriously. I don't feel like he just went into this to play around. I just, like we said earlier, I don't think he knew how to navigate being so connected with two different women,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And so she tries not to cry. She says she's never had that she's been married twice. But she knows that she can do that she wants to do that, to be forever with someone till death do it apart. And Leslie ITM, sometimes she can sabotage when she thinks that things are good. But she's going to face her fears like today head on. And she could do that with him by her side. And I was like, ooh, that is a red flag that she sabotages the good things that happen to her because she's had so much bad things that have happened to her. And we do see Gerry gives her the fantasy suite date card, and they're both in, which I wasn't shocked at. But Gerry says he wants to have brutally honest conversations. Gerry says to Leslie, so they've been sitting in the fantasy suites for a while, and he tells her Teresa's advice to him, to
Not
pick
Teresa.
the person, Trista's advice to pick the person he can't see himself without. And Gerry thinks Leslie is that one for him. He says, I want to have you with morning coffee. I want to have you to go to bed at night, which beautiful words. I just don't know if he should be saying
I don't think
that.
he should be saying it.
Good
I do
night.
think that I could see him dating her for the rest of his life, but like,
Mhm.
I don't know if I can see him marrying her at this point. I feel like
Me
she's
either.
just I feel like she's a fantasy for him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, she's
Yeah.
beautiful, she's fun, she's
Yeah.
easygoing,
I
romantic,
agree.
kind, but there's
Mhm.
something about his
Their
way of thinking.
connection. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's just too much knight in shining armor for me. And I feel like we had that with Faith too, right?
Mhm. Right.
Um, Faith was probably a little worse, I feel,
Yeah. Yeah.
in the insecurity section. But yeah, I think that after this date, I was like, oh, I am not sure she's his person. And then he went to Teresa's date, and I was like, ooh, I don't really think she's. But they do make. Oh, they said they're not sure where they will live, but they will decide. And he said everything else they will. He wants to figure out. And they do make out, and Leslie is sad. She has to leave Gerry, and she is looking forward to their happily ever after. And so they do talk about how warm it is in the room, and Gerry notices it's set to 80 degrees, and he says, what does she like it? And he said 70, and she said 69, and they laugh.
You know what I'm saying? And I knew right then when them people left out, she was gonna rock his world. I was like,
Oh,
he not prepared for Miss Leslie. Miss Leslie, yeah, she's active. I feel like she's flirty, fun, like and I
did
just
she
felt
date
like he
Prince?
was gonna be mesmerized by her. Like I was like, he's just gonna be mesmerized by her.
She dated Prince, right? It was her.
Yes, that's the same person. So the next morning, Gerry says waking up to Leslie was a great start to his day. They chatted until 3 or 4 a.m., but not about everything. Gerry says people want to know what happens in these fantasy suites, but it's none of people's fucking business.
Okay.
Like,
I
damn, Gerry.
agree.
Right.
Like, I guess you don't want us to ask the question,
Right.
Right.
the difficult questions.
Right.
Yes. So Gerry says it was an
No, we
awesomely
can't
it was an awesomely good night with great conversation. Gerry says their relationship did grow through these conversations, and he can see his life with her. And so they do say goodbye, and then we do see Leslie again, hard knowing that Teresa is still here. And she says nothing bad to say about Teresa. She's her friend, but she's gonna try to focus on what they have because she's confident in that. And so that is solid. I feel like if they don't end up together, the one thing I think that Leslie might have come from this is to be a little more confident in her relationships and not focus so much on the outside factors, because I feel like her knowing that there are men like Gerry out there that can either commit or find one person will help her in the future. Because I think that was the hardest
So,
part for
like,
her.
if she gets dumped, I don't know if that might undo anything that she learned.
Yeah, I don't know, because this episode I think could be taken two ways, because at first it just does really kind of seem like this was um, Leslie's game to lose, actually. And so we do see Teresa is in Costa Rica, and she says she never thought that she would get to this place stepping out the limo. Teresa is looking forward to today, and they do walk and they come upon some horses for them to ride. And Gerry is in his head. He does think it's very weird to go from one overnight date to another. Gerry says it's getting harder to compartmentalize, and I said this a couple episodes ago. He has put everybody in this little box. Like, I'm in love with her in this box, and I'm in love with her in this box, and he's like, it's not easy to do that anymore. And
guys can't really do that very well.
no, and Gerry says there is so much at stake. He worries if this goes better or does this go flat. And so they ride, and he's very quiet. And I felt so bad for her in this moment, because what is supposed to be like this romantic horseback ride is he's just not giving her anything.
He's giving her the cold shoulder.
He's giving her the cold shoulder. And Teresa does notice that the quiet, and she realizes this is the best thing about Teresa. She always realizes what Gerry needs.
Mm-hmm.
And she always is able to get them back on track. And she does say she understands it's probably hard for him. He just saw Leslie. He's probably in his head, but she wants him to focus on them.
Be present, absolutely.
To focus on each other, to be present. This date is very important for her because she does love him. And Gerry does express that he is having a hard time. And Teresa reassures him. Right. And it's so funny because we do see this man who wants to be a knight in shining armor, but just like with any man, he needs his queen. He needs a woman to that's there for him by his side, his partner, to reassure him, to uplift him. And I feel like Teresa is that for him.
Absolutely. And I think he's attracted to and sexually attracted to, especially to Leslie. And she's the fantasy girl. And I could see him dating her for forever. But I feel like building a continuous life with somebody, I feel like Teresa is just a safer choice, but with somebody that he does care about. Like, he's not choosing somebody safe because he doesn't care about them. Like, I think that he needs to feel safe, and that maybe that's what his ex-wife or his late wife provided for him, but it's not something that Leslie has been providing for him. And so right now I'm gravitating towards him choosing Teresa.
Same. Gerry says to himself, he ITMs, Teresa is the ideal woman. What is wrong with you? Ideal woman for him. So he recognizes that. And I said that, I think either last episode or episode, I think he realized that Teresa has the potential to be like the perfect woman for him, but Leslie is that woman that he probably never dreamed that he had the opportunity to be with in any way. But he also is thinking, what is Leslie doing right now? And I was like, oh my God. Like, maybe another thing they could do is give them a day between fantasy.
I think why they don't give them a day? My goodness. Like, that is just give them a day. Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to be on the shooting schedule. Like, relax.
No. Like, you took out a third person, skip a day. Skip a
Yeah.
day. So I do feel like it was unfair to everybody in this situation. That was a lot. You can't just shut off your emotions like that.
No.
So we do see them sit down together for dinner, and he says he doesn't feel like they are moving forward, not exploring anything new. And we do say that like earlier that we feel like there was a point where their relationship got cut off, the Kathy situation, that kind of thing. So, um, but he does say he's committing himself to see this process through with Teresa. And I was like, oh, like I don't like these words. Like I feel
Right.
so bad for her if she's watching this show back because there's no romantic like about this.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. But he does ask Teresa about her career. And it's like I feel like they have had the deeper conversations that he can ask her more about her and her wants and get more into her actual needs and
I
he
didn't really
asked her,
understand her response though. It was just like I was like,
oh,
wait, what? What are you trying to say? So you're talking about the fact that you had like you were trading stocks, or like what are you doing now? Like I wasn't fully paying attention, but I kind
okay.
of got a little lost.
So and he wants to know when she plans to retire. So she says she was a homemaker and that she just I guess her husband must have like given her money to like play around with. So she started trading security, which probably back when she probably started doing it, very lucrative. Like you could
Right.
just make money just off of that from home.
Mhm.
Um, but she said that at some point her husband did mention that, ooh, shit, that
The health benefits. He needed something.
that that
Saying the
that
health
that
benefits.
he was paying the insurance benefits out of pocket, just straight because I guess maybe he owned his own business, and if she could get a job and just pay for their insurance, that would be helpful to him. Which I love that he. I will say this about her husband. I love that he actually broached that conversation. Most men would not say, "Hey, I'm faltering here. There's a need here. Can you help us meet that?" I'm speaking from experience, and so she does go out and say, "Well, I've been trading with this company. Let me see if I can go to that company and like get a job." And so she's this older woman, the homemaker. She hasn't had much experience except for actually trading from home. And so she goes to get this job at this company, and she's competing with all these college age students to get this job. But she does secure the job in this competitive field of securities. And she said she learned a lot. She's taught people a lot, and she's really accomplished so much in her career that she is appreciative of still having the career to this point, right?
Yeah.
And so um, I was like, wow, I did not know that about Teresa. Like,
Me
I realized
neither.
that she was still working, but she's got grit. Teresa's
Yeah.
got grit. Yeah. And so he wants to know why she wanted to do this. Like, knowing he's like, I feel like now, like, he starts feeling a little inadequate. He's like, well, what made you want to be here for this? And she's like, well, I was dating and I didn't find anyone. And while trying to date, I realized I wasn't going to find anyone in the way that I was dating. And so I just removed myself totally from the process. And then my daughter came and told me about this and to apply to meet you. And I realize now I was meant to meet you. And he he does ask what she thinks her husband would say, like, does she talk to him? And she says she does, and he says he does talk to Tony. And I just feel like them being able to commiserate on those commonalities really started just even more solidifying their connection. And him understanding how much of an independent woman that she is, that she doesn't need him as much as she wants him, is also attractive, right?
Right.
But also maybe emasculating as well. Not sure. Like, 'cause it just seems like she's kind of well off and doesn't need
Oh, she's
Gerry. And so
definitely
Gerry does
well
have that
off.
whole I like being a knight in shining armor. So
Right.
I'm curious. I don't know. It's a fine balance that he needs to be doing because basically both women have something that he needs, but like they also have the other things that they each other don't have, you know? So
Right.
I agree. And so they do both agree that they feel they would be happy for them. So he does say that Teresa answered and developed more deeper conversation topics, and that he didn't even think about some of the questions. And so he does say he wants to move forward with her. So he hands her the date card, and she agrees. And he says he's glad he didn't close off in those moments, that he would have missed an opportunity with a great woman.
I'm
Right.
like,
Uh,
I missed an opportunity. What do you mean? You just bang another hot chick?
I
Gerry?
don't know.
Gerry?
But she
I
says
don't
to
know.
him, I know you like to sleep on the right side. And he says, how do you know that? She says, I asked you. And he says, I don't remember you asking. And she said, but I did. And I just feel like that's so telling. Like, she's been
Teresa
asking
asked the
those
question.
deeper questions that he was asking Leslie to ask.
That's
And
what I'm
she remembered.
Mm-hmm.
So the next morning they do talk, and they said that the 24 hours made the difference. Teresa says it was special to have Gerry by her side. And she says Gerry made it special. Gerry saw the side of me he didn't know existed.
Oh, the lion comes out.
I know.
Mhm.
You saw her with her little booty shorts on when she got out. I was like, Miss
Uh,
Teresa was surprised though.
yeah, so just some people gotta be subtle with it. They gotta be subtle with
Uh-huh.
it. So
Hmm.
they feel like they finally got to know each other.
Oh,
And Gerry says it feels like the first day of the rest of my life. And they discussed hopes and dreams and observations, and they understood each other on a fundamental level. And that's that fire energy. That's that Leo and Leo. It really is. And all of his reservations about Teresa are gone. And she says, I'm crazy about you. And Gerry says, the nice part is you know exactly how I feel about you because I told you. And he does say that he told her off camera that he loves her. And now it's something just between them. And he says, let's not go overboard as they're making out. They got grandkids watching. And Leslie, we do see, is nervous. And Teresa says she's happy that he finally said he loved her. And Gerry, on the other hand, is torn up about this decision. He knows that somebody will get hurt, but he knows what his decision is. And so that is the end of the episode. As I said, I was concerned coming to this episode. Wasn't a terrible episode. I do agree with Chantel. They need to fix how this is moving forward. Even B is saying here, I really wish the young contestants were more understanding during fantasy feats like Teresa. The producers don't want them to be, right? So the producers will be in their ear riling them up about this, right? Like, and again, I think this is kind of comes back to our conversation. This middle age. If you are a confident person, if you get to this middle age, like 30s and 40s, or you go up, like, we are mature enough to understand these conversations, have these conversations, and understand where these things lie compared to these younger folks
yeah,
who
we're
are
talking
a little
about
more
like,
idealistic.
are you sleeping with anybody else? That's
Yeah.
probably the
Right.
only question that they're asking.
Yeah. What's your body count? That's like their first question. Why? Why are we asking that question? I hate that question. And I don't even have a high body count. I just think the question is gross.
Rude.
I just
It's
don't.
an ick. If they ask you that, it's an ick for you. An ick.
It
Mhm.
is. So any last thoughts about these fantasy suites?
Well, not necessarily about the fantasy suites, but kind of about what's
Mhm.
coming to come. You know,
Yes.
next week Gary's going to make his decision. We're going to see that he's really torn up about it. I'm kind of annoyed that they placed it so we have to wait a week for Thanksgiving to go by and then get the finale. Like, I feel
Mhm.
like it really is losing its momentum. Will I care about it in 2 weeks? Like, I don't know. I'm like, like, so I
I
feel like
was I was concerned about that too. Like there was one point I was thinking maybe I should tell Chantel and Miss TJ let's do a recap next week, like just to
right.
kind of gear us up for that because I'm concerned about that too. But you know what? It is what it is.
But you know, I want to see how it all concludes because it'll make me understand this fantasy suite episode a little bit better, just knowing what he
Mhm.
chooses. Because like I could make a strong argument for him to choose Leslie. I can make a strong argument for him to choose Teresa. Right now, my gut is saying Teresa, but that's only because I feel like the Leo connection makes more sense. But then, you know, you never know. He might be going with like the fantasy of it. So like if he goes like
Mhm.
I want to have a full understanding to maybe understand this episode a little bit better. So
Right.
it's hard for me to really know what's going on. It was interesting just seeing the process, but
Mhm.
I really can't be conclusive with my thoughts because I could really see him choosing either woman.
Right.
Very
And I
confused.
we go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just very confused on the fact that he tells Leslie things on camera out loud for us to hear, but these conversations where he expresses his feelings for Teresa, it's you know how I feel because I told you and it's between you and me. But you're on the TV, sir. Why can't we know? Why can't we know and why
Maybe
can't
it's to
we
make it
hear
more
you?
special though, right?
Right. And I think A is
For the audience.
probably
Is it that it's more special or is it deniability or if I don't have it
but wouldn't
on
it then be the
camera?
opposite?
No, I don't have it on camera for everyone to see that I told you these things and not choose you.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I can see that, but then also, like, I would think if I was going to choose Teresa in the end and she sees on camera that I say it to somebody else, but I said it to her in a private moment and be like, listen, you're the one I choose. Like,
Mhm.
whatever you see me say on the show is just was I was feeling that in the moment, but you know that I'm saying this to you because I want it to be
Mhm.
special. I don't want it to share this moment with anybody else. Like, I feel like he could easily spin it if he's choosing Teresa to that moment was more special
Right. And
and less performative.
I also feel like with Leslie, he lives a little more in the moment. I just feel like he just jumps in when he's with her, not really thinking. Whereas with Teresa, it's a little more methodical. And he can be because he does, I think, have that security factor with her. But I don't know. We would have to ask Gary
yeah.
final
We'll
row.
probably be able. We'll probably get our answer next week,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Right. He's
yeah.
gonna have
Well, in 2 weeks.
to.
Yeah.
2 weeks. Exactly. Or he's gonna definitely have to say something to the woman that he dumped, right? Because they're gonna be
Yeah.
like, "What do you mean? You told me that you love me." Or
You
what do you
told
mean?
me
You
I
told me
was
that
your
you love me
girl. Yeah,
by myself, like when we're alone in the fantasy suite.
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's gonna be one of the two, right? So
Right.
That I was the one, and yeah, like so he's gonna have to explain himself.
Yeah.
And just saying, "Well, that's how I felt at that point." I don't think it's going to be good enough. So, all right, guys. So we're going to wrap this up. We're going to head over to Chantel's channel for our BIP wrap up and recap. And guys, tell them where they can find you, Missy Joy.
You can find me at Miss T Joy on all social media.
Mhm. And how about you, Chantel?
usually at Shan Fran Fran on Instagram, at Shan ___ Fran on Twitter, and Reality Realness with 3 S's on YouTube.
Yeah. So you can follow me everywhere, Entertainment in Color. Right now, I am still covering this. I will be back in a few hours also to cover Love Island Games this week, wrapping up this week before the penultimate episode of that tonight. And then I will be live tonight and tomorrow for the last 2 episodes of Love Island Games. If you missed Love Island Games, you missed You missed it.
The best show of the
It is the
fall.
best
Unfortunately,
show.
House of Villains is
I'm
close
so
second.
Yeah,
scared. I'm so scared about tonight.
You
I
know
feel
what's
like I know
happening.
yeah.
it's gonna happen
You
though.
know what's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I'll be back on Tuesday to cover Traders Canada with Janelle Michelle. We just wrapped up our Big Brother coverage. But if you want more Big Brother coverage, I did do a Kicking It with Ray on Spotify. Her podcast, we talked about Big Brother. We also talked about The Bachelor and VIP, Golden Bachelor VIP. So check that out on Spotify. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. And we're going to head over to Chantel's channel, Reality Realness, the three S's for Bachelor in Paradise. Love you guys. See ya.
Bye.